And I've been meeting a lot of there, so.
Do you guys live in the Newark area?
He does.
Okay.
Yeah, about 5 minutes from here.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, we live in Pataskala, closer to Crookersville, but
You were a counselor out at Southwest Licking.
yeah, I was at the high school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Missed the June, July, August opportunity there.
I haven't gotten to that point.
Sure, yeah.
I'm so new, but
Although you did miss out on the Christmas vacation, right?
Foster Brother's been really good with like vacation, and I can work from home if I need to. So I've really enjoyed being like having that flexibility, although I haven't worked from home a ton. My husband works for the state office of Job and Family Services in policy. So he's been home for the last almost 6 years now. So I find that if we're both home trying to work, like
Yeah.
You said
I very strategically swapped our name.
Yeah, you.
Trying to watch really well.
You know that. Well, so. So I'm sure there's a was the juvenile judge. Most of you for part-time.
He doesn't know me like, no, yeah.
Well, he doesn't know my name. He only knows me because like I'm usually with like I've been with Melissa and so he's talked to her. I've been in his courtroom a couple times, so he knows me by face in that sense. But he's a constant call talker, and so like he's
Yeah.
yes, good to see you.
Yeah. My first court experience with a young adult yesterday.
What happened?
George, Matthew George.
Yeah.
Yeah. She made out really well. Like I hope she understands it's a blessing. She got caught speeding and then going left of center, right of left of center. Like, I had to think
You went
about it
right
for
of center, that's a problem.
But like I've never been to traffic court before and just how it all works. And so I only walked away with $100 fine, which
Yeah, like so points on the license, right?
she could have, but she didn't.
They waived that. Well,
At least so far. See if there's any follow up with the VMV. Yeah, because of the go with me. Or I'm happy to go there.
Probably helped her, yeah.
I can't say anything.
So they didn't ask who you were in it?
Yeah.
No, so they brought everybody in to the program.
Yeah.
Just the people who received the ticket. Any spectators had to wait outside. Do you guys know this? If I'm like, and you have to watch it, like, if you get a ticket, you know, in the courtroom, you have to watch like an orientation court video. I'm not even kidding. It was
Don't be a
like
jerk.
20 minutes. So we're just like waiting in the hallway, like, okay. So they open the doors. We could sit on the right side and everybody who had a ticket. So left and then they just called them up on.
This is our year.
Yeah. So I'm like, I feel like some days I need to play bingo. Like, didn't see that coming.
The judge didn't ask you. She was
No.
with.
Nope.
Okay.
We're gonna start in about 5 minutes, folks, so please make sure you grab some brunch, coffee, some
And I
more.
wonder if that's because
And find
they're
out
not
if you have
matters
it as
anymore.
well.
Like they're adults, so this was adult. Not necessarily anything juvenile.
You're at Hope Landing. Right?
Mhm.
And how many kids are there now?
Right now, we have 4, we have 5 apartments.
Yeah, so she is our executive.
They've been there for a while before they're there. Or they...
2 are going, well, 1 is actively looking for her next apartment. She's been doing great. I don't think she's quite 9 months in, maybe like 7 or 8. The other is at 6. And then the other 2 came in probably October before I was there. They were all there before I got there in November. But, yeah.
She was sick, but only from magically one day. Yeah.
You're pretty consistent. Yeah.
I'd say this is birthday then. So
Yeah.
This is what?
less attended than others.
Fine.
Tables have been playing, or like somebody had them.
It's everybody.
I don't know, that's what I was telling them, I would, that's.
The flu, the,
First of the year or whatever.
no, this is usually a demographic that actually brings out people from the woodworks.
I know, who's trying now?
Everybody's happy and healthy.
Well, I think
A lot of your household was sick, you said?
And I had it.
Yeah, I was just.
I had some fake as whatever he has. Why, we've had some, I've been down with parishioners or I have 2 people, different nursing homes, and nursing homes are on lockdown. These are back up with donations. It's a lot. That and first of the year. How are your kids?
Good. Grace, Mary will go back to school on Monday. This is already bad. And Valley, so.
I love you, but
Yeah.
not.
It's good, it was good. Good Christmas vacation.
Yeah. They come, they go, they come, they go. That's the age. Almost all done for coming.
Yeah, so Emma's still home, or she's back home.
Emma has a apartment.
Oh, she does, okay.
And her boyfriend, we get together in the spring. Anna's married. And Johnson's to be done this spring. Ohio State. So we'll see if he's on to grad school or.
Dave told me about, he was kind of doing quite well for himself.
He is, he's gonna have to support all of us. Yeah, he is, Miss Patty.
How convenient.
There is. Yeah, like, yeah, and, you can sign people, yeah, sit at the front desk. You do, checking for what you sign and you see what they need, have them fill out a couple of papers. We'll come, at the beginning of the session and I do an orientation. All the volunteers, 4 o'clock is the volunteers. If you want to volunteer, call Emma. Emma, email. And then sign up, and then she'll have you come, that first session to begin orientation.
So I hold that back down.
She said.
I hope you're repenting. It didn't make sense to me.
Until it turned red and I caught it.
That's right, yeah. Was this thing on?
One night.
You hear me? I was like,
No, if you want to that one night, yeah.
This is good.
Kendra, how are you?
Did you bring some more?
Yeah.
I apologize if you hear myself.
oh. I thought about that this morning. I was running a little late. Like,
Who did actually? So it's from Snapshots.
I don't remember mine.
is that the place on 16 in Greenville? Like, you can see it on 16. Never been there.
Used to do our hay babes, like another location, right?
There was a snapshot, it's like, yeah, like that's the original one. was
Yeah.
there. 16.
Yeah. I hear the do all of you.
So ready.
Yes.
Don't feel bad. I feel the same way.
Yeah, we all give one word answer.
It's true.
Yes, no, maybe.
I know. Getting this work done. Do you want to answer?
Are you guys ready? We're gonna go ahead and
Sure.
give it our best shot.
Let's do it.
This will be.
She said you, I'll remember that she
Keep saying.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to 2026. Hope everybody had a good end of the 25 year and are ready to roll into 2026 as we think about ways that we can continue to work together. Welcome to our first CPC forum of 2026. We're excited today to talk about a really important topic for our community as we have a conversation about foster care and kinship care. for Licking County and what that looks like. We have so many wonderful resources in this county, so many people who truly care about what's happening around this topic. And we're excited to be able to hear from a few of those folks this morning. Just a few housekeeping items. I want to remind you that on your table, there's a slip of paper for you to jot down some questions, because at the end of our already planned question time, we will invite you to ask some questions of our panelists, and hopefully we can have a little bit more conversation. Also on your table, if you are brand new, not been here before, we don't have your contact information, please go ahead and fill out one of those slips. You can leave it right there on the table. And likewise, if you would give us some feedback about today's event, or you have suggestions or comments, we would love to hear from you. And we take those. The Community Partner Council Forum Committee meets every week. They'll review those comments, those questions, and keep those things in mind. They're already planning 2027. If you'd like to be a part of the Community Partner Council Committee, know more about it, you can talk to Ashley Washburn. She is our Community Partner Council representative, which also provides for her a voting board member seat on the United Way Board of Directors. She's going to be sharing with all of you at the end of today's forum just about some other reminders. Also, in case you need to slip out a little ahead of time, I do want to invite you all to a few other things coming up for United Way. Next Tuesday, we are continuing a three-part conversation around homelessness and housing. It's a follow-up to the screening of the Beyond the Bridge. And this conversation next Tuesday will be at the Doubletree Hilton at 6 o'clock. And the conversation with our panelists will be obstacles and opportunities in Licking County, housing model solutions. So we hope that you'll come and join us for that very important event. Coming up, we don't have a regular CPC forum in February. Instead, we are inviting all of our not-for-profits and community service providers to come and be a part of our Community Service Expo. This will be at the YMCA Mitchell Center, February the 11th, from 4 to 6:30 p.m. Everybody is welcome to come. You can have a table, you can share all about the wonderful programs and the things that you provide. It's an opportunity to network with other providers in the community, as well as solicit volunteer help or potentially find that new employee that you're looking for. So we hope this will be a beneficial resource fair for everybody working in the not-for-profit community service sector in Licking County. Please, if you have not already registered, if you are a funded partner at United Way, you're required to have a table there. Make sure that you've registered with Corey, and he'll give you more details about that. United Way is working with the Licking County Foundation this year, the Community Intercultural Relations Conference. Many of you have been to that over the years. For a variety of reasons, they were not able to convene and host the planning for that event. So we've been working diligently on planning and preparing for the next Community Intercultural Relations Conference. That'll be April 17th from 9 until 12 at the Reese Center. It'll only be a half-day event this year, but we're really excited about what's coming up. For that, we will be inviting Sarah Abu Rashid back to talk with us about neighbors, networks, and belonging in Licking County. So come and join us for that. And then finally, there is a whole list of 2026 panel or Community Partner Council Forum topics listed. All of this is on our website, so go to unitedwaylc.org for more information, or reach out to the office and reach out, and we'll get you connected. With that, let's go ahead and dive into today's topic. We have three panelists with us this morning, Nicole McCullough, Eric Shaw, and Erin Miller, and I'm going to have them do a little brief introduction of themselves. And those of you who've been here before know that we'll ask some questions and they'll take turns answering those questions. But again, throughout our time together this morning, feel free to write down your own questions and we'll get to those at the end of the session. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to start down there at the end with Eric, and we'll pass the mic
Nice try.
up and down the table. If you would just introduce yourself. And then the first question, along with your self-introduction, will be, give us a brief overview of the work you do in the organization that you're representing today.
Okay, is this on? Yes, okay. So my name's Eric Shaw. I've been with Licking County Children's Services since June of 2004, so a little over 21 years. When I first started, I worked in the ongoing department. I was working there for 10 years. Kind of give it just a quick overview of like how Children's Services is broken down. It's not on. Oh, it's on. There we go. Okay, hopefully it stays on. To give it just a quick overview of like how children's.
Nope.
There it goes off again. Is the battery dead or?
It could be the battery.
I'll just talk loud. I'll take that. So just real quick while we're doing that. So like if Children's Services gets a call, like a referral on a child, then if it meets the guidelines to screen in the case, then an intake worker goes out and knocks on the door with that family and just kind of gives them just kind of follows up on the allegations that come in from the referral. And then if that case, like the intake worker kind of would work for that case for up to 45 days, something like that. If it needs to go beyond that time, then it gets transferred to an ongoing worker. And that's what I did. So the ongoing worker kind of like worked with the family for a longer period of time to try to resolve the issues, whatever concerns there were, to get the children back home or to be able to close the case. So I did that for 10 years. During that time, I was working, with the parents, but then if the children were removed, they might be in a foster home or in a kinship placement. And so that was where my interest in kinship kind of started, was I was going out to these kinship placements to see the kids in there with their relative or with the family friend or whatever that are placed there. And once a month. Is it working now? Okay, thank you. And so my interest in kinship kind of started as an ongoing worker. So then I moved to the kinship department and worked there for 5 years. Basically, the role for kinship worker would be to go out and if we do remove a child, we're exploring for if there's a relative or somebody known to the family. We're trying to see if we can find a place for that child to go. So my role as a kinship worker would be to go out and check that house out to make sure it's appropriate. And then also to provide support for those kinship caregivers as well. So I did that for 5 years, and then I moved into a supervision role a little over 5 years ago now. And currently I supervise the kinship program, parenting skills coaches, and adult protective services as well.
My name is Erin Miller. I am here representing Fostering Further. I've been here for 3 months this month. Prior to that, I was a high school counselor, and I was there for about 13 years and then made the transition into the nonprofit sector. With Fostering Further, I am the Starting Strong director. So I don't work directly with young adults in foster care, because when they come to me, they've aged out, so they are on their own. So I really find a lot of parallels in school counseling and what I do now as a Starting Strong director. I am an apartment manager. We have an apartment building with Fostering Further that is specifically for emancipated youth. So those that have aged out, they can't stay with family, or for whatever reason, we have 5 units, a 5-unit building in Heath, where we are able to have some young adults come live with us. In our work with Fostering Further, Lindsay is our foster support. So our group as a whole does support foster families, foster kids, foster agencies, the caseworkers, but we are not ourselves a foster agency. We just work to support the incredible and hard work that the agencies, the families, and the caseworkers do. So I'm here more of the what happens after they age out. That's where my area kind of comes into play. But Eric and Nicole are going to give you all the information on foster care and kinship.
Hello, I'm Nicole McCullough. I work for Lincoln County Children's Services with Eric. When I first started working at Lincoln County Children's Services about 14 years ago, actually it is 14 years this month, I started in intakes for their screener. So basically all the calls that came in for abuse and neglect, I was entering them, and the intake department would assess whether or not it made the state criteria for us to investigate. And then, so I did that for a few years, and then I also became an ongoing caseworker, what Eric had spoke about earlier, and did that for about 9 years. And then I moved into supervision for the placement unit, which I supervise foster care, the adoption workers, and the Wendy's Wonderful Kids recruiter.
Okay, thank you so much. And again, want to welcome you and thank you for being here. So as we talk about the terms foster care and kinship care, there might be some folks who really don't understand some of the intricacies. What are some of the criteria to be in foster care? What's the difference between foster care and kinship care? So if you could just speak a little bit more about those.
So foster care is when the agency obtains custody of the child or children. So basically the child may have been removed from an unsafe situation, or maybe the family had asked for a temporary surrender for whatever that may be. And so at that point, when they come into our custody, we are looking for either a kinship option, which is the least restrictive, so a family friend or a family member, or a foster care option if there is no family options at that time identified. And so the foster care coordinators that I supervise will get information from the worker assigned to the family of the child or children that we now have custody of, and contact either our foster homes if we have any that are open that meets their licensure. So like their ages of 0 to 5 or 0 to 18, and depending upon the ages of the kids and their needs. So we'll see if we have any homes that would meet them, and ask our homes if they will accept them into their home if they're comfortable doing so. And if not, then we'll explore other networks like the Village Network or NIAP or the Buckeye Ranch to see if they have any foster homes that could be a good placement option for the child or children coming into care. Sometimes the child or children or the youth coming into care may have some significant behavioral mental health needs that might need a more congregate care setting, like a group home or a residential treatment facility that we might have to look into exploring for placement as well. I'll let you explain more about kinship.
Do you have anything you want to add?
I don't at this point.
Okay. Like Nicole said, I mean, our first interest, if we end up having to remove a child from their parents, is to look for some kind of relative, somebody that's known to the family, known to the child. As an ongoing worker, I had a case, I had several, fortunately, but in this particular case, the child was, we had to remove the child, and her 9th grade English teacher was like, hey, I really had a bond with her, really felt like, I really have a heart for her. And so the kinship worker at the time went out, did a home study on that teacher and her family, the house, and we made the placement with that lady. So it's not always just a relative. Sometimes it is somebody that's just known to the child. And those are the ideal scenarios. Because if,
being removed, obviously, for a child is super scary. And so we call it least restrictive. It's our preference to place with a kinship placement because it's less traumatic for the child to do that. So kinship, like really our role in kinship is from the agency perspective is to go out and assess whether that home's appropriate. Because we also don't want to take that child out of the frying pan into the fire, right? So we're going out and I mean, I think we'll cover some of the stuff that we do specifically in terms of kinship later on. But yes, we go out and assess whether that home's appropriate. And then we kind of follow up with that kinship caregiver and provide some assistance to them as they have that case as well. So.
I would also like to add that even when we place a child in foster care or foster home, we still continue to look for kinship options throughout the life of the case. So even if there's none identified on the onset of the case, we're continuously looking to see if there's someone that may not have been given to us in the moment, because sometimes, you know, families are upset and are scared. And so we just continue to ask when we're involved. And then even when a kiddo is placed into a group home or residential facility, our goal is to always step them down into a foster home if kinship is not identified once they're successfully completed their program.
Okay, so let's just dive in a little bit deeper with some of these and how that really looks in Licking County. So if you could also give us an overview of what does it take to get into kinship care? What does it take to get into foster care? How many kids are we talking about in Licking County right now who are involved with foster care and kinship care?
I can. Okay. So actually, we just figured out the numbers the other day. So right now our agency has 214 kids that are in our custody. Out of that number, we've got 47 kiddos in kinship, and then the rest are in a foster care type setting or residential. And I'm sorry, what was the second part of the question?
Just tell us what that looks like exactly. And so as we move into probably the next question, walk us through what happens. What's the process? And how does that look for our county particularly?
So okay, so if we're working with the family, obviously our first intention is never to remove those children, and we try to throw all kinds of services to the family to prevent removal at the outset. Obviously, that's not 214 different times, at least that's not been viable. We've had to find some other option. Another, just from a Licking County perspective, numbers perspective. So we have 214 children that we've gone to the court and asked the court to give us custody. And then we've made the determination whether to place in kinship placements or foster placements. There's actually another option, not to confuse things, but there's another option where we really don't want to get more involved than we need to. And so we can actually go to the court, and if we have a relative identified, we can say to the court, hey, we've had a safety plan with this relative for a period of time. We've checked this relative out. They seem to be very appropriate. There's a good working relationship between the parents and this relative. So instead of us, the agency, taking custody, we'd like for this relative to have temporary custody. We would ask the court for an order for the family to work with us. So they're still kind of on the hook to work with us. But there's 50 of those children as well, where the children are in the temporary custody of the relative. We're actively working with that family as well. So that's just another kind of wrinkle that we do. And we try to do that when it's possible. Just like we don't want the agency to be more involved than we need to be. We obviously want to address the concerns for the children. So there's that as well. So in those scenarios, our kinship workers, in the scenario where we're asking for the relative to get custody, the kinship worker will go out. So the family identifies some relative or somebody known to the family. We'll go out and make a home visit to that home. We've got state, basically like state forms that we kind of go through that kind of identify if they're firearms, where are they stored, and are they stored appropriately? The rules for firearms are that the firearm has to be locked in one location, the ammunition has to be locked in a separate location. So there's all these different specific rules that we go through. If they've got a pool, we hate pools. because it's just like, obviously pools are fun, but they're obviously a huge risk, especially for toddlers and stuff. So we really try to work with the family, recognizing that, it's intended to be accessible to the family, but we want to make it as inaccessible as possible for those children. So, there's a lot of like going out and just kind of like problem solving a lot of that stuff. That's what kinship workers do. And that's what they do great because they're, the family members sometimes don't want to be taking care of these kids, but they realize that the alternative is that these kids are going to some stranger somewhere, right? And so a lot of times the kinship workers are kind of working through some of that grief with the family members, working through like, just problem solving on like, okay, how can we make this work so that we, the agency, can go to court and say this is an appropriate placement. So that's kind of how kinship works. And if we take custody and then place with a relative, we have some additional things that we have to do. So we have to do fingerprints. The state says we have to do BCI and FBI fingerprints. There's a couple other like things that we would have to do that are more specific because we have custody and the state requires it. I feel like I kind of lost my way there. I don't know what else to cover in terms of that, and then in terms of like what it looks like from that point forward, if the family is determined to be appropriate, we place that child there. Then we're going out. The kinship worker doesn't really go out on a regular basis, but the ongoing worker would go out on a monthly basis to check in on that child or those children to just kind of check in and see how they're doing, how the caregiver's doing. And then also to kind of the ongoing worker is also going out on a monthly basis to meet the parents as well. So.
In regards to foster care, so an ongoing worker will continue to go out to see the child where they're placed at least monthly, if not more, depending upon the situation of the child. And if it's one of our licensed foster homes, our foster care coordinators, we have two, and they are assigned to they're both assigned to a certain set of foster homes, and they go out as needed with their families as well. And then whenever they also have placement, the foster care coordinators try to go out at least every other month to kind of see how that's going. Sometimes they'll also go out with the ongoing worker as a support to the family and to the ongoing worker to see how everything's going. And basically the child, until either kinship is identified or until the case is resolved, however that may be, they will remain in the foster home setting. So
let's talk a little bit about timelines here. So right from the beginning, you get contacted at Job and Family Services, Child Protective Services because of a suspected or reported case of child abuse and neglect. From the time that the report is made, you're contacted, how quickly do those kids typically get placed, if need to be placed into foster care or kinship care? What's the average amount of time that takes?
I think it varies based off of case by case. In general, whenever we get a referral, we have 24 hours to decide whether or not it meets criteria to investigate. If it's not an emergent situation, if it's an emergent situation, then the intake worker goes out immediately to identify what's going on. And then again, it's case by case. Sometimes the workers will identify a safety plan. Sometimes that safety plan can turn into a kinship option if it's needed. And sometimes it is just a safety plan and they can't do it longer than a day or so. And so then at that point, they're looking for other kinship options and if not, then that's when if the agency is needing to get custody because of the concerns, that's when the worker will ask the prosecutor and see whether or not we have enough information, enough concerns, and then the prosecutor will go and ask the magistrate for us to have custody. Or sometimes they schedule a hearing. It kind of varies. Again, it's a case by case. So it could be that day we get custody. It could be a couple weeks. We intake workers have up to 45 days, depending upon the case. And sometimes the cases are even just voluntary where, kinship, you sometimes deal with the voluntary cases on a kinship aspect.
Yeah. So Yeah, the intake worker has 45 days to work it. If it goes longer than that, then it gets transferred
Okay.
generally to an ongoing worker. One thing to kind of add to what you were saying earlier. So we obviously have, well, we don't, maybe it's not obvious, but we have just normal business hours. So our office is open from 7 to 4:30 or whatever. However, Children's Services is available 24/7. And on the off hours or on the weekends or whatever, referrals go through the sheriff's department. So people call the sheriff's department and say, I've got this concern about abuse or neglect. And then the dispatch calls our on-call worker, who then makes a determination whether or not that's something we need to respond to right then, or whether we should wait until the next day. So, in those scenarios, there are scenarios where we get that call on a Saturday morning, and the kids are, there's some significant issue and it's not going to be resolved quickly. And so we have to act right away. And so in those scenarios, yes, we're calling the magistrate at home to say, here's the situation, and the magistrate gives us custody at that point in time. So there are some scenarios where we can even safety plan it throughout the rest of the weekend and then kind of address that on Monday or whatever when we're open. So there are those scenarios, but yes, we do have up to 45 days as well.
Could I add?
Yeah.
I just want to touch on a couple of things. Like, again, we're not an agency, but we definitely partner with JFS on a regular basis. So when kids come into care, or when foster families or even kinship families need supplies, that's where we thrive and what we love to do. So we have everything from a clothing closet to supplies on hand, because sometimes, especially in an emergency removal situation where a child or children are being immediately taken out of a home, they don't often leave with much. So our group has been so fortunate to have great people who have a very similar passion for helping people, and they donate supplies or funds where then we can have stuff on hand. So that is one way that Fostering Further continues to help the support that these caseworkers and agencies do. And it's talking about timeline and age for the Starting Strong program for us. Just to give you guys some information, we assist young adults when like 18 through 23 to 24. If they are still in care by the time they reach 18, they can remain in our programming and part of our group of young adults through those early 20s, because they still have a lot to learn in some cases. So
thank you. On the other end of that timeline, what's the average stay that someone's in foster care or kinship care or custody?
So just before I get there, we love Fostering Further. They have been a godsend to us for sure. We called them on all kinds of different things, and they've come through. So we very much appreciate everything that Fostering Further does. So when a kinship worker goes out and talks with a relative, they're kind of working through like, yeah, I know that you didn't ask to have this kid, but we're asking you, do you want this child, and all this kind of stuff. And the canned speech that we give every time is, these cases can last, like if we're getting custody, that means the judge is now calling the shots, or the magistrate. And so nothing's going to happen real quickly, because the magistrate's going to need to know that like whatever changes happen are lasting. And so we usually tell kinship caregivers, like, you're probably in this for at least 6 months. And then if it's a custody issue, we basically have up to 2 years to work. Like, actually have a year, and then we can ask for 2 6-month extensions for custody. And so we're talking to the kinship caregiver right off the bat about like this could be a commitment that is longer than just this weekend or this month. And in rare situations, it is shorter. However, if custody change happens, it usually is going to be about a 6-month ballpark at least. But then we're not just stopping there, because unfortunately some children are not able to return home. And so then we're talking to the relative about like, by the way, yes, we said 6 months to maybe up to 2 years, but also there might be a scenario in like 8 months in which the parents we can't even locate them, and we have to find some kind of permanent plan for these children. Are you interested, or have you thought about the fact that you might, that they might need longer care than just this period of time? So we're trying to kind of throw all those scenarios out there so they can at least start thinking about it and start, that helps prompt questions for them about like what that can mean. So, and it's similar in foster care, but I'll let you.
So in foster care, when a child is in placement with their foster parent, if it doesn't look like there's a kinship option or parents are not able to resolve the concerns that led to our involvement and custody being removed, the foster parents may be asked at some point by the ongoing worker, you know, would you be, if the agency has to go and ask for permanent custody of the children, would you be interested in potentially adopting the child or children placed in your home? Not all foster parents want to adopt, some just want to foster. So if they don't want to adopt, obviously the child will remain in the home, and if permanent custody is granted at some point, which would probably happen, then at some point an adoption worker will get assigned and meet the child and work with the child and recruit for the child to find their forever family. Now, if the foster family is willing to adopt, then an adoption worker will still get assigned at some point and work what they need to do to finalize the adoption on our end.
So that's kind of the timeline. What are some of the criteria for the children and the families who are involved to exit then foster care and kinship care? What are some of the things that you and the magistrate need to see in place and happening before kids can exit?
Again, it varies case by case. It kind of depends upon what the situation that arose. So we'll just say, we'll give a hypothetical. So if the child was removed due to concerns revolving the parents, we'll say they're using illegal substances. So like drugs. So, and maybe there might be a mental health component. So a lot of times there's something that's called a case plan that an ongoing worker has to do with the family and even with the child in regards to like what the parents need to do to resolve, to show that they're sober, that they're emotionally stable, that they have housing, that they have employment, that basically they can meet their needs and also their child's needs, and that they themselves are safe, and that where they're at, it is safe for the child to return to their care. So that's why the timeline can vary, because depending upon the significance of the situation, it might take a minute for the parents to show that they're able to be safe for themselves and also to care for someone.
Anybody that's worked in the field of social work and has an experience with substance abuse realizes that that recovery is that journey. And so sometimes there's kind of hiccups in that journey. And so, if a parent comes in and is struggling with substance abuse, if they relapse, that's not like an automatic, we're done. It's just, okay, what happened? What do we need to do so that we can kind of prevent that future relapse from happening? But the typical things that kind of that are on a case plan that Nicole is referring to, that the parent would need to work on. I mean, housing is certainly an issue in our community and all over now. So we have a lot of parents that are struggling with like stable housing, whether they're couch surfing or they're living out of their car or whatever, or they're just on the brink of eviction, or they're living with a relative or whatever. So housing is a primary concern or frequent concern. Mental health is frequently an issue, and so it's stabilizing that mental health, getting some kind of treatment, and being consistent with that treatment. And then substance abuse probably is one of our most popular as well. And some of that too is like, the parent might not have hit rock bottom at the time that we're removing that child, but is, definitely on their way. So they might still be kind of fighting back on the fact that they don't feel they have a substance abuse issue. So it's kind of getting them to circle around to, well, the magistrate also felt like that was a concern enough to remove your children. So helping them get to realize that they need to make some changes.
So once the child has exited and the child's been placed back in with the home, if that happens, what kind of other supportive services are provided for foster children or kids who've been previously in kinship care? Is there any follow-up with these children afterwards?
So you're talking when reunification happens, when they return to the parents.
Reunification, is there anything else?
Well, I'll throw out that, so that one of the programs I mentioned that I supervise is parenting skills coaches. So sometimes an ongoing worker might be working with the family and they're like working, they're getting to the point where reunification can happen. But we just kind of need to help get the kids kind of assimilated back into the home and the parents kind of getting used to like setting up daycare and setting up a routine. The kids come back into the home and they left home with the parents acting one way, and now the parents have made the progress or made the change they need to make, and those kids kind of have, even if it's subconscious, some kind of expectation of how their parents are acting. And so getting like our parenting skills coaches sometimes will go in and kind of help with that transition of for the children when they come back in the home, kind of help set up daycare, like I said, and develop a routine, address any behavior issues for the children, and help the parent kind of identify what appropriate ways of discipline, that kind of stuff. So there's that support that happens kind of in the transition. And throughout all this, the ongoing worker is going out at least monthly, if not more. And then once the transition home happens, one of the ideal things when kinship works well is you've got kind of, I mean, that was a relative. And so hopefully you've got this built-in like support system that then you can also use in that reunification process as well. So, if the parent gets overwhelmed, suddenly parenting full-time again, hopefully you could pull in that relative to kind of provide some support. Maybe the kid could go back for the weekend over to grandma, grandpa, stuff like that. But then the ongoing worker goes out on a monthly basis. At a certain point, we talk about custody returning to the parent. But then we don't stop there. So if custody returns, we're going back to the court and asking the magistrate to return custody to the parent. And then typically what happens is the court orders, and we request that the court order a supervision order. So a protective supervision order, we call it as PSO. And that order, like we request things that are identified in that order, like, the parent continues to make sure that that kid's going to counseling and they're, doing, like, we have very specific things that we kind of identify in that order, and then the magistrate approves that. And so then the parent has custody. But then we have this order that they're supposed to continue to work with us for 3 months or 6 months. We can kind of set that time frame, whatever it is. So.
I will also say that when kiddos are in foster care and they're working a transition plan to go back home with their birth family or even with kinship, we often, the caseworkers, and if it's one of our foster homes, we encourage our foster parents, or the caseworkers encourage the foster parent that they're working with to, if it's safe, we're not going to put anyone in an unsafe situation. We encourage the foster parents to work with the bio family, because if a child can see that, you're working together and you're not working against each other, it's gonna help so much. And it's always good for the child to feel that they have love everywhere. And so we often encourage the foster families to, again, work with the bio family in the transition process. And when I was an ongoing worker, I had foster families that may not have agreed with the kiddo going home to the birth family, but they had kept that between us, and they still worked with the birth family, and the birth family trusted them enough to where they would call them on the weekend to watch the kiddo. And so just keeping those connections, because if that kiddo were to come back into care, obviously we'd be looking at that foster family for kinship regardless, but then they still have that connection.
Thank you for sharing all of that. As we think about long-term success and well-being of kids who have been in foster care or kinship care, what do all of you see as sometimes the long-term impact on kids who have been through the foster care or kinship care process?
You can go ahead if you want.
I know it's a big question.
Yeah, I mean, it's I think it does a number on a child's well-being to be removed from their parents. And that doesn't even recognize or acknowledge all the stuff that they were dealing with when they were living with their parents, and that led to them getting removed of whatever their parents were doing. So I mean, it's hard to identify whether, like, what impacts are from prior to removal or the removal process, or, moving on, beyond that. But, from a kinship perspective, I'll just speak on that. I think that what we hope is that when we have some kind of kinship caregiver, that's somebody that can be a support to that kid. If the parents relapse again after after the children's returned home, if the parents have relapsed again, hopefully that caregiver is still a support for the family, and still a support for that child. So we've had cases where like the parent reunifies with their child, and then like kind of things fall apart, life falls apart, and we find out after the fact that they've kind of made their own arrangement to get that child back to the caregiver that we had placed before. So, you know, and that's I as an ongoing worker, I felt very like passionate about trying to explore those family connections, or those connections for the child that even if it's not family, that they're comfortable with and that they trust. And so I feel like in this job, that's some of the best we can do, is to try to continue to like foster those relationships with the people that even if it's not a relative, like that teacher. I mean, that it was life changing for that child, for that teacher to step up. I mean, she's not related at all, and at the time she wasn't going to get any kind of financial assistance for this, but she did what she felt was right, and she changed that girl's life for sure. So
This is about the impact, yes. Okay. Just yesterday, actually, I accompanied one of our young adults to traffic court. I learned a lot. I've never been to traffic court myself, but the young adult unfortunately received a speeding ticket and wanted some support in that environment. So happy to go and just be a support there. But I bring that up because initially this young adult, who is a total success with us, she has her STNA, she works third shift at a local assisted living facility, has her driver's license, obtained it with us. Like, she is killing the game of adulting in spite of everything that she's had to overcome. Her initial interaction with police was negative because that's how she was removed from her home. So then we fast forward to now she's 18 and is pulled over, and that interaction unfortunately wasn't the best, and then resulted in court. I'm not saying anybody was at fault. Everybody has their own side of the story. The point is everybody's safe. And her experience in court yesterday, albeit she has a fee, was a positive one. But just being able to be there to support and to help her walk through those situations, sometimes that initial interaction with whomever may be removing those children from the home, unfortunately, isn't great. And that's the only perspective she has of law enforcement, because that's the only thing she's experienced. So being able to then, on the other side of things, again, when they work with me, they've remained in care through 18. So they didn't have reunification. So being able to walk side by side with them, helping them to see the good in a spot where they didn't see the good before, has really been a great opportunity. Sometimes difficult, but great.
I think foster parents can have a great impact on the child or children in their home. I know that some of the foster parents that I worked with when I was an ongoing caseworker, would, even take the child with them on vacations and, out of state. And sometimes these kiddos have never been out of state before. And so, they're experiencing experiences that, they hadn't had. And I know that just with that, and then, maybe being on sports teams that they weren't able to do before. And then, sometimes there's kids that may not have had the steady, like wellness appointments or checkups, and just being more consistent with that. And there might have been some stuff that they were later diagnosed with that, was kind of suspecting, and, just keeping up with like the follow-up care. And so, I mean, there's a good impact in regards to foster parents as well too.
Thank you for sharing all of that. What are the things that you think, and I know Fostering Further is, championing this, but Fostering Further can't do it all alone either. what can the community, family, friends, other people in Licking County do to help with kids that are in the foster care or kinship care programs? Are there things that the everyday person could do to help?
Well, I know for me, I am hoping to find more foster homes that are willing to foster older youth. Our agency are seeing a higher number in kiddos that are coming into care that are mainly teenagers, but we are seeing between the ages of 5 and up, more of an increase that are needing placements. And unfortunately, within the state and probably nationwide, we're dealing with a foster care crisis. So basically, we have kids coming into care and not as many beds to place them at this point. And also, I guess just, if you know someone that is, maybe coming into care, being mindful or open of being a kinship option too, to help prevent them from being in foster care.
No, do you have anything?
I just, Fostering Further has a support group for foster parents, foster families. And we've heard testimonials from some of the families and parents who have participated, just how it's a space for them to feel just all of the things that other people in the room are feeling. I have not been a foster parent in my experience in my life, so I don't know what that's like, but in this space where our group supports, they're able to do that. So if you know of foster families who maybe need a space where they can walk side by side with other families who are experiencing the same, please don't hesitate to mention this to them. We'd be happy to share information.
I mean, not to plug Fostering Further, but I mean, we've had like people that have in the community that, want to help out, and so they might drop off like a bunch of blankets or something like that. And while we really appreciate that kind of stuff, like we don't have space to store stuff, and we this, might not always need blankets. And so, but Fostering Further has been great because sometimes we've had people that say, like, I have this donation, but I'm not sure what to do with it. And so we've actually steered it to Fostering Further on occasion because they have the ability to store that stuff. And I think they have the ability to kind of get it out in different areas as well. So donating to Fostering Further, like whether that's goods or money or whatever, I mean, sorry, but
No, it's good.
we appreciate that. Or whatever, like I know that there are other church programs, like the Look Up Center has been helpful too, and that's kind of a conglomerate of churches and stuff. And so certainly kind of providing goods or donated goods or whatever, I think would probably be helpful because we benefit from that indirectly. And then I don't know, like if in your church or somebody in the community that is a kinship caregiver, I mean, like it's hard. And foster parents come to us and say, hey, we want to take care of these kids, but we're going to the kinship caregiver and saying, hey, will you take care of these kids, right? And so they're not necessarily always asking. And sometimes they feel coerced a little bit, not necessarily by us, but by the family. And they recognize that like those children are going to be either coming to me or they're going to a stranger. And so, so they're not necessarily excited, enthusiastic, but they know that it's the right thing to do. So just providing that support to them is, if of a kinship caregiver, recognizing that maybe they didn't ask for this, but they're stepping up and doing what they feel is right. So.
Okay. Just because this is being recorded and because we want to get this out to other people in the community that aren't necessarily here today, tell us specifically, how can we contact Job and Family Services if someone says, I'm feeling led to be a foster care provider? What do they do?
That's your department.
They can call me. My direct office number is 740-670-8918, or they can call one of our foster care coordinators, or they can go onto our website, Licking County Job and Family Services, and there's prompts where you can go and look into more information about it, and then also be able to reach us by email on there. So
what would it take to be a foster care provider or kinship care provider if somebody has never done it before and they're maybe interested? And can you just share a little bit about that?
Well, definitely give me a call in regards to the foster parent provider information question. But most I'll just say you have to do training for, it's pre-service, you have to do training. We have to do a home study, background checks. It's pretty intense and, it's between 90 and 180 days of us, doing the home study. But prior to that, we want you to do your pre-service training. And then interviews, we interview you a few times and then your family. And there's other things too, depending upon, like where you may be living and stuff, so.
So when you talk about there being a shortage or a crisis, you have perhaps more people who need placements, but we don't have the beds in Licking County.
Correct.
If they would like to help meet that need, they would contact you, the
Yes.
number you provided, or Job and Family Services. And the prompts will be there to walk them through that process. Okay?
And I do want to add in regards to the beds in Licking County, when we're looking for foster placements, we could be looking anywhere in the state of Ohio. There's even some kiddos where we've had to even look out of state for placements, just to make sure you're aware of that, so.
Okay.
I can just,
I think it's dead.
oh, it's still green, but I think we're dead. So, to get a hold of us at Fostering Further, you can Google us, just Fostering Further or fosteringfurther.org. And the easiest way to get in touch with just all general services is emailing info, INFO, at fosteringfurther.org. And then depending on what your need is or your question, or if you're looking to give anything, Lori can then decide who it goes to amongst the rest of our staff. So she's great.
Anything else out here?
I mean,
It works.
yeah, that's fine. I'll just sit down. I'll just talk loud. So kinship caregivers can actually become licensed foster parents. There's kind of like, I'm not going to get deep in the weeds. If anybody has questions, they can come to me later. But the state recognized that like there was this kind of loophole where kinship caregivers were being asked to step up and take care of kids, but they weren't getting some of the same benefits that foster parents were. And so they kind of there's a way that now we can do a child specific foster care home study and license that kinship caregiver as a child specific licensed foster parent, so they can get the benefits of the foster care per diem and some of that stuff. But it follows some of the similar expectations, but they don't have to go to the pre-service trainings. There's some like waivers that we can do for like safety issues. Non-safety waivers is what they're called. So we can do like a home study like that and then get them licensed as a child specific foster parent as well. And so that's part of our speech when we go out is, I mean, this is one of the other things that I always feel bad for the kinship caregivers. We're going out there and kind of saying, do you want to take this kid? Because if not, we're going to send them to a stranger. But also, here's like all these things that like, here's all this information, and they kind of have to like listen intently, but they're also, coming to terms with what's coming ahead. And so we talk to them about becoming a licensed foster parent, but then we try to follow up with them because it's not automatic. They have to indicate that they want to do that. So, yeah.
And it's just for that child. It's not for other kids coming into care.
Correct.
Unless it's a kinship.
I mean, we could do a home study, a full-on home study, a foster care home study, because we've had some kinship caregivers that have done it, felt like got a heart for taking care of kids that need a home, and then become licensed foster parents from there.
Yeah.
So,
You mentioned placing kids out of state. Can you talk a little bit about why that would occur and what might be some of those?
So lately a lot of, not a lot, but some of the older youth that are coming into care are needing more treatment needs. So our agency's been working with Ohio Rise and seeing about getting them linked with, basically it's called a PRTF. So basically it's a psychiatric treatment facility out of state. I think we have one kid right now that's in Missouri, so.
Erin, back to Fostering Further. You're there to support the kids that are in the services. Are there some very specific things you want to just mention out loud that you know of today would be the most helpful to let our community know?
Needs like for children or for our programming or?
Yeah, support,
Hmm.
to support the kids.
Yeah, so from the young adult standpoint, we do welcome kits. So when those young adults emancipate out and they get their first apartment, we provide them with basically, it is a large tote of all of the things they need for their apartment. Think like soap, brooms, clothes hampers, trash basket, and bags, and just all of those things. Brooms are expensive. Like, I don't know if you've had to buy one recently, but those are the things that when our young adults move in, we want to break that barrier down and get those for them. As far as the other side for the younger ages, diapers and wipes, because again, if you're making that removal or if they're going into care of any kind and that family, no matter if it's kinship or not, hasn't had a child in a diaper in a long time, where are you going to go to get those, depending on what time it is that, you receive those kiddos? So there's always tangible needs like that. And if people aren't sure what to do, we will gladly use any funds and then purchase what is needed, because it depends on the season, quite honestly. We supply families with Christmas things. So like that need during November and December is very different than the need of April, May, and June. It just depends on the season. So, yeah.
Great. And what we can do is if you have other additional items or things that you want to list, we're happy to put those on our website and get that out to the community as well. So just to move a little further in the questions, people have a lot of misconceptions, I think, about foster care and kinship care. Things have changed. What are some of the largest misconceptions that you'd like to correct for our audience today?
Do you want to go first?
I almost do your thunder. You have one that you want to go ahead and say. So.
A lot of times people in the past, I haven't heard it recently, would make comments about basically caseworkers being baby snatchers. And that,
Or
that,
more specifically, like
Yeah.
getting commission or something
yeah,
like
being
that.
being commissioned.
I asked if I had a parent ask if I would get a toaster for this
Yeah.
removal and that kind of thing. So, there's that kind of stuff.
Yeah. In regards I also think there's a misconception in regards to foster parents are making, all this money off of having this child placed in their home. They're really not making, they're not making a profit. They're just the per diem or the money that they're receiving for the child is to help meet the basic needs of that child. A lot of times the foster parent is putting in their own money, to help meet the needs of that child.
I think, it happens probably more in foster care, but this idea that like, well, all this child needs is just a home, a stable home where we'll love them enough and then things will kind of sort themselves out. These kids have had a lot of trauma before they show up at their house, and that manifests itself in behaviors that are just really hard to manage, and love alone doesn't do it. And so kinship caregivers are guilty of this too, where they just kind of, even if it doesn't matter how much we talk about that, until they live it is when they really understand that like these kids are hard. Some of these kids just, they've had a hard life and they're coming to terms with with all kinds of things, and a lot of adults they've learned not to trust, and so loving alone does not fix whatever behavior a child has when they're coming into a home. And so sometimes we get caregivers, whether it's a foster parent or a kinship caregiver, that heard that but maybe didn't understand or appreciate it, and then a couple months later that honeymoon period wears off with that child and they start testing the boundaries, start being dishonest or whatever, and things kind of fall apart at that point. So that's hard, and we do the best we can to try to explain, like, we appreciate that you love them and we appreciate that you're going to give them a stable home. The child might not appreciate that, or you might not see that they're going to appreciate that. So yeah.
That's a good point. We've had a number of forums too about trauma-informed care. Is there training around trauma-informed care for the kinship providers and the foster care parents to some degree they can get?
I don't know, like pre-service, there's pre-service, there's some,
There's some, matter of fact, my workers and I are supposed to meet with our contact of our training center to talk about like the training needs of our foster parents. And, this type of stuff comes up, or, more training needs for even for the older youth, the teenagers. Because a lot of foster families are, obviously concerned about the unknown of the teens, because you hear stories. I feel like there was something I was gonna add to what you were saying.
I mean, to your question about training for kinship caregivers, so that, like I said, that the pre-service isn't required for child-specific licensed foster
Mhm.
parents. So like kinship caregivers that might want to become licensed foster parents for that specific child. While the training is not required, it's still available to them. And even like if we see a kinship caregiver that's struggling and they're open to like kind of training, we would definitely connect them, that we would make that possible for them to get that type of training. One of the challenges, I mean, we've talked about foster or kinship support groups, and there is actually one that kind of, I think it's still going on here, and we've partnered with them some. The challenge is a lot of these kinship, again, foster parents come and they say, hey, we want to do this. And so they come in with a lot of motivation. Kinship caregivers, we're bringing the children to them and they're trying to incorporate them in their lives. And so they don't necessarily have the interest in then like going to a support group sometimes, and doing all the logistical planning to make sure that their kids are like somewhere else, and or childcare, all that kind of stuff, right? They didn't come to us, we came to them. And so sometimes I think that's where kinship support groups have been kind of a challenge. I think that they're overwhelmed already and they don't necessarily want one more thing to do. So
Well, and Fostering Further offers support groups for our foster family.
right, yeah.
Mhm.
We've also had a panel in the past about an increasingly number of older adults,
Mhm.
even grandparents and great grandparents who are
Mhm.
providing
Yeah.
that primary care now for children. Are there some unique things that you're seeing now as we see more years in between that primary caregiver and some of the children that are placed in foster care and kinship care?
I mean, certainly the gap in technology knowledge.
Mm.
So,
Oh, yeah.
kids are very savvy and the grandparents are not as much. And so, and where the trouble manifests is like if the kid is then has some kind of contact with their parents, and maybe they shouldn't have contact in that, and like the electronic fashion, right? So,
Mhm.
when we take custody of children, there's a very specific and defined like visitation orders or contact orders between the children and the parents.
Mhm.
And oftentimes it starts with a supervised visitation at the agency.
Mhm.
And so things like phone calls might be okay, but we want to kind of make sure that it's within certain guidelines so that we can ensure safety and well-being for the children, right? Because we've had parents that promise like, well, I'm going to court next week and I'm going to get you back. And like
Yeah.
everybody working that case knows that's not going to happen. But the parent, that's what the kid hears, right? And so so I think, if a grandparent's not real savvy on electronics or that kind of thing, I think there's a gap there for sure. I don't know, I mean, we've had caregivers that have health issues. They're older and they've got health issues, and we're talking about a toddler. And so we've had hard conversations with relatives about like, if this kid runs out to your pool, are you going to be able to, get up and go get them before they get to the pool? And, then we're talking about like, what are things that we could kind of do to slow that child down? So yeah, I mean, there's things like that for sure.
Before we go into the last question, I'm gonna ask Juan to walk around, collect, if you have any questions, if you'd go ahead and hold those up. And we'll be opening that up to the rest of you for additional questions. While he's collecting those, so we can end a little bit on a positive note, could each of you maybe share some positive stories, some words of hope and inspiration about your services and how important it is that we support fostering further foster care, kinship care in our county, and maybe just share a positive story with us.
I'll go. There have been more success stories in terms of young adults prior to my arriving here, but I want to tell you about one. Part of our programming is also our Drive to Thrive program. So believe it or not, foster kids cannot obtain their license while they're in care.
Mm-hmm.
They can't do anything like that, like all of their other peers in school until they turn 18. So obviously that's a huge barrier for success. If you can't get to places, you don't have your license, how in the world are you going to continue education, get a job, do all those things? One of our current tenants who I mentioned earlier, she was still in care when she graduated high school successfully. The stats are unfortunately so opposed to foster kids completing high school, not to any fault of their own most of the time, but she has graduated high school. She actually attended C-Tech and completed the program there, obtained her job at the local nursing home, obtained her license through us with the help of our volunteers that we so heavily rely on to do those hours, and did all of the things. And now she's looking to get her own apartment outside of our group to be on her own and closer to her biological family. So her mom has been clean and sober. She still has a great relationship with her brother. So all of these things, in spite of her being removed from her biological family, she's continued to thrive, largely in part because of the community that's supporting her. Everybody from her job and family services caseworker to her Bridges liaison through NIAP. She was willing to live with us. And there's rules to live with us to do our program. But she had goals and she's obtained them, but it truly is because of her own grit and also because of the support of the community. So thanks to anybody who's ever considered, supporting a young adult or a kid in foster care, because it truly makes a difference.
I'd say more than, I mean, it's happened plenty of times where I've had like a relative say like, I've been worried about like my niece or nephew, or I've been worried about my granddaughter. And I've tried to help the parents, but like if I push back, then the parents disappear and I don't see the granddaughter for a period of time. And so then they're kind of relieved when Children's Services gets involved. And then we are looking at them as a placement because for the first time they can kind of breathe about, I mean, there was continue to be worried about their child who's maybe struggling with substance abuse, but they know the grandchild's safe because now that they're not afraid that if they say something to the parent that they're going to, like, the grandchild's going to disappear, parents going to whisk them away somewhere or prevent having contact with them. So I think there's in those situations where like grandparents are just finally can breathe a sigh of relief that child at least is protected and safe in their home. And I mean, I go back to that case earlier. I mean, that I talked about that earlier about the kid that was actually safety planned with not their parent, but with somebody in the community that kind of fell through. And then the teacher stepped up and took her. And I mean, it changed her life because it was somebody that was like able to, like, then she lived in a normal household, and to Nicole's point, like she was able to participate in activities that she wasn't able to participate in before because she was kind of bouncing around from school to school. So there's like for that moment in time, she had some normalcy, and she got like, it was very hard for her when removal happened. She really struggled. But like, I think what saved her was she went back to somebody she knew as opposed to a stranger. So, yeah, I mean, as an ongoing worker, I really developed a heart for kinship. The foster care system is absolutely necessary, because kinship isn't always ideal. We set a goal of at least 25% of the children that are in our custody are placed with kinship, and we're almost to that goal. We're like at 22, 23%. But that means the rest of them are placed in a foster home. So foster homes are absolutely necessary for sure. But I just have felt like that family connection or some kind of connection to that child, like they're in it for the long haul. A foster parent, sometimes they decide they just aren't able to manage that child anymore, and then they're done. And kinship caregivers do that too, but I think they're in it for a different reason than so yeah, I definitely have a passion for the kinship part.
There's been a few situations lately where some of our foster parents may have, well, we've gotten custody of a kiddo that we're late in the day and, maybe is an older youth and would be hard to place because of just the age in itself. And so sometimes our foster families will go out of their comfort zone a little bit and take the child as placement until we can either identify a kinship option and, or until we can find a more, a better match of a foster home for them. Because if we can't find a placement, I mean, there's a chance that they would just stay with us at the agency. We've never had that happen and don't want to have that happen, come close to it happening a couple times. And that's what's scary right now.
What would that mean? I'd say more.
Basically they would probably stay in our visitation room, one of our visitation rooms until we can find placement.
So it's kind of
Like
been a
literally
trend.
Literally.
In the office until you find.
It's
Yeah.
been a trend at other agencies across the
Yeah.
state where they cannot find a placement, and so those kids are staying in like a lobby
Mhm.
or staying in like an office or something. Franklin
Mhm.
County was having that issue, and the state recognizes it as a problem.
Yeah.
And so they've developed, they're kind of developing this plan called wellness centers, which are kind of like almost like a group home where, you know, for those kids that you might end up in a children's services lobby because there's no placement for them, they could go there instead. So it's at least some kind of home. But like we're just starting that. The goal is that those will be up and running in January of next year. So like, yeah, we're ways away. But
Mhm.
there have been plenty of county agencies within the state that have had kids staying in their lobby for multiple days trying to find a placement for them. So
So I hear that is just simple.
it's terrible.
Yeah.
Yes, it's terrible.
You know,
Yeah.
Somebody's out there in Lee County
Mhm.
and really wants to make an impact.
Yeah.
Consider providing a home to a
Mhm.
foster care youth in Licking County.
I will just say to their end, one of our dreams as an organization is to be able to have a building that has those spaces for those young children, any children during those times. We just don't have the capacity nor the space right now to offer what that need is. So yes, amen to what they're saying.
Just heartbreaking.
Mhm.
We're gonna move to some questions. I think we got a few from folks here in the audience. And let's start with the first one. And I think we've kind of answered this, but just in case, how can we in Licking County support emancipated youth? And that would be, I guess, Erin, your family work here. What could we do more specifically to help that age range?
Yeah, so specifically with our program, we are always looking for volunteers. If you think about it this way, unfortunately, a lot of times our foster children maybe they've bounced from home to home or they haven't had a placement long enough to observe behaviors or even just expectations. Think about like doing your laundry. If you haven't witnessed your parents doing laundry or even teaching you how to do laundry, they don't know that skill. Our Drive to Thrive program specifically relies heavily on volunteers to teach our young adults how to drive. We also do adulting classes once a month where those volunteers are in our groups with those young adults, just getting to know them and building community and relationship. We have a process to become a volunteer. We're specifically looking for males, but we'll take any volunteers. But just to walk alongside these youth, that's probably the largest need right now. Of course, affordable housing is always a need for emancipated youth because we know that that's a struggle regardless of your status right now. So
Come to our forum next Tuesday. Creative housing. Okay, thank you. Let's see, next question. And this could be for anyone. Do you refer people to triple P training? It's free. And what happens to a child who must be removed now? I thought.
You guys know triple P?
So, so we have parenting skills coaches. I mentioned that. We get the email that gives the updates on the Triple P parenting program, and I forward that to the parenting skills coaches. That's one of the things that they would, one of the resources that they would put out to their parents. We've talked about kind of going through that program with them so that they kind of like do the application for what they learn in the Triple P program. So, we as an agency get those emails and would encourage it. But oftentimes part of a case plan goal is, to do some kind of parenting program. And so that might check that box depending on the needs of the family.
Okay, and so then one more time again too, if somebody knows of a child that needs to be removed now, what do they do? What's the next step?
Like they need to make a
They
referral
need to be
or
They-
that.
Yeah, let's start with that. Yeah.
danger of a child. So what do they?
Well, I guess it depends on like if 911 needs to be called, if it's that type of
Right,
danger. And then, obviously their law enforcement are mandated reporters. So any concerns that they see, they're mandated to report to Children's Services. And then any referral in general of abuse and neglect you would call our agency hotline, which is 670-8888, to make that referral to one of the intake screeners. And then they would give that to the supervisor for it to be assessed.
And then if it's after hours, you call them the sheriff's
Yeah.
department and talking to them about what concern you have. And then the dispatcher would then reach out to our on-call worker and go from there.
We always say, if you see something, say something,
Mhm.
reach out. It's on the weekends,
Sure.
call the sheriff's department.
Mhm.
Hours are open, call Job and Family Services 670-8888.
8888.
And, but if in doubt, call,
Mhm.
make a referral and at least, we can follow up and, check the situation out.
Yep.
Okay, let's see what other questions here. How can we donate funds to fostering further? Is there Venmo?
Venmo would make things so much easier. Actually, I'm going to defer to our executive director. Shelby is here. Shelby Conley. Do you mind answering that specific question?
I will take. Yeah, but we do have pamphlets laying on your table for anyone to look at it. We do not currently have a Venmo account. I wish we did. That would be lovely. But right on the front page of our website is a donate button, so you can just click right on there. You can always come up and talk to us. We do accept checks, of course. But there are many ways to donate to fostering further outside of just monetary. So if you are interested, ask myself, Erin, and Lindsay.
All right, thank you. So again, go to the website, click donate to fostering further. How quickly is the home assessment completed for identified pen?
So just wasn't yesterday, it was Wednesday. So Monday had to do a removal. The child was living with a parent, and the parent's paramour tested positive for methamphetamines. We had a safety plan with the relative previously. So our kinship worker left the office that day, went out, did a home visit to make sure the house was safe, and started fingerprints for the caregiver. So the placement happened that day. So it can happen. And same day. And if we're on, like if the agency's closed, our preference is to place with the kinship caregiver. So, if we can safety plan it so that we don't have to so we can do kind of a more thorough assessment when the agency's open, we'll do that, but we'll do what we need to do to make sure that kinship placement happens, as soon as possible.
So while you're assessing the kinship placement, are they in foster care during that time?
No, so the state recognizes that you can't just do because a kinship home study can take 30 days depending on how long it takes for the fingerprints to come back and stuff like that. So we'll do local background checks, and then go out and look at the house, and if everything checks out, then we would place that day, and then we would do the home study, continue to do the home study until its completion. So the state allows for that kind of thing for emergency situations. It's preferable to do the home study ahead of time because for a variety of reasons, if only because we don't want to place that child and then have to remove them because something doesn't work out. But in a pinch, we would rather them not go to foster home and then a kinship. We would want to put them in a kinship placement if possible. So the state has really helped push kinship as the primary focus. So when I started, I mean, kinship was kind of like, well, if there's a relative, that's an option, and that's probably a good idea. And now, the expectation from the court is that when we go in, any summary that we put to the court, we have to identify what efforts we've made to find a kinship caregiver. If they're with a kinship caregiver, we have to identify that they are with a kinship caregiver and we're not pursuing any other kinship placements at the moment. But if they're in a foster care placement, every summary we put into court, we have to like identify what efforts we're making to find a kinship caregiver. So the state's really pushing that, which is good. It's a good thing for sure. Yep.
Any final comments, statements you'd like to share before we close out our questions here today, Martha?
Like I have anything else.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So if there's none other, Patty, she's got her hand.
I have, I worked in mental health for 32 years and I have a huge respect for family, child and family services and the courts that take care of these very difficult situations. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Appreciate that.
Likewise, I just want to say to our community, Licking County, it's heartbreaking. Anytime that we see a child or a youth who's suffering, especially having a difficult time in their living situation. But I also want to say, we're very thankful for all that the supportive services in Licking County provide to these kids, especially to all of you sitting up here today. I know all of you have a heart for this or you would not be doing this job. It's very difficult. We are so very thankful for what you do for our community and thank you so much.
Thank you.
I do want to add kind of to that point, like I feel I've really developed an appreciation for Licking County in its size. So you have these small counties in other areas of the state where their kinship department, their kinship worker is also their adoption worker and also their ongoing worker. And so it's a caseworker that's doing a bunch and they don't have a whole lot of resources to provide assistance for kinship caregivers. We're big enough that we have a kinship department. We also are big enough that we have like resources. So there's different programs to financially assist kinship caregivers, depending on what their need is and, if they fit in within the guidelines. But there is money available now. There wasn't when I started. And we're also not so big like a Franklin County where like you can actually pick up the phone and there's 2 kinship workers in our county and if they don't answer the phone, they're going to get back with you because we're that small as well. So Licking County seems to be just this like sweet spot there. I've always appreciated that. Yeah. Yeah. Right. That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
Judge.
Oh, with the consent of the panelists, could I share a success story from Licking County Children's Services as I approach?
Sure.
Yeah, I really want to take my hats off to these folks at this table, even though it's been said before, because they have a very thankless job and they get you kidnappers, remove children from homes. And how much money did you get for each child to remove? Yeah, okay. So let me introduce myself to those of you that may not know me. My name is Bob Hoover. And from 1977 to July of 1984, I was an assistant county prosecutor and represented as legal counsel of Licking County Children's Services. And then I was a court referee, which is now called court magistrate. So I signed emergency ex parte orders authorizing the removal of children from the home. And then until I retired 6 years ago, I was the Licking County Juvenile Court judge for 25 years. So my experience with the child welfare system in Licking County started before these people were born. So I've been around a long time. But I want to tell you a success story from Licking County Children's Services about a little boy by the name of Johnny. That's not his real name. When Johnny was 9 years old, he was removed from the family home by Licking County Children's Services and placed in a foster home. And Children's Services, by the law, which was then in effect at that time, had to develop a case plan document. At that time, it was called a comprehensive reunification plan, setting forth the services that was going to be provided to the family in order to permit reunification for that child to return home. And so they did as the law required. Ultimately, they were not successful. The parents were not successful. Johnny had been subject to chronic neglect and chronic child abuse. And so there was a permanent custody hearing. All parental rights were terminated. Johnny became eligible for adoption and was placed in a prospective adoptive home, who, in a family that had been foster parents. Johnny had very, very special needs because of the neglect and the abuse that he had been subjected to. It was a disrupted, what we call disrupted placement. Within the first 6 months, foster parents said, we love this child. We wish we could continue with the adoption plan, but we can't. We just can't handle his needs. So he was removed, found another foster home for prospective adoptive placement, and the same thing happened. The foster family, prospective adoptive family, loved this child. So we just cannot handle his special needs. And so that was the second disrupted placement. And so another placement was found for Johnny in a home outside of Licking County, but not too far away. And being probate judge, I handled the adoption. So let me tell you about Johnny's adoption hearing, which was the most unusual thing I'd seen in 40 years. Never seen anything like this in my life. The adoption hearing was at 9 o'clock in the morning. Most adoptions from Children's Services and other adoptions, you might have 4 or 5 people present. You've got the child who's present, the prospective adoptive parents, their attorney, and maybe grandma or grandpa or family friend. So you might have 5 or 6 people. Not for Johnny. Johnny, we had 60 people in the courtroom. 60. The courtroom was packed, standing room only. And I thought, this is bizarre, because every person that came into the courtroom that morning had a scarf on. A Batman scarf, Superman scarf. What was the third? Spider-Man scarf. All right, so everyone settled down. The attorney for the prospective adoptive parents stood up and said, Judge, Johnny has asked that I ask you a special favor, if you would accept this Superman cape, Superman scarf. And I said, sure. So the only time I've ever been in court with the Superman cape or scarf on was that particular adoption. But the prospective adoptive mother stood up and said, Judge, I need to explain why he's asked you to honor him by wearing the Superman scarf. He says, since he was a little boy, his superheroes were Batman, Spider-Man, and Superman. Those were his superheroes. And we told Johnny this. You may never have thought about this before. Superman, Batman, and Spider-Man were all adopted. And Johnny, that's why you are so special in our home. We're adopting you just the same way that Superman, Spider-Man, and Batman were adopted. And this little boy had a huge smile on his face. He was dressed in a coat and tie. And so I did the adoption. But what this family that Children's Services found, the adoptive unit, was they found a family that offered him unconditional love. They offered him unconditional love. And so we concluded the adoption hearing in a few, I don't know, 5 or 6 months later. I've never done this before, but I contacted the adoptive mother and, how are things going? And she said, well, we have our ups and downs, as with any family, but things are going well. And this family that adopted them were very religious. And she says, I need to tell you that last month in church, there was an altar call, and Johnny approached, went up front, no one asked him to, and said how thankful he was to God for finding a family that loved him. He was truly integrated into that home. It was a perfect match. And so I wrote Johnny back a letter and talked about some of the things. And a couple weeks later, I received in the mail a present, I don't usually accept presents, but it was a plaque that said, Jesus is my superhero. Okay? I kept that in my office for maybe a year, then I thought, why am I keeping this in my office? So I gave that to the adoption unit at Children's Services. Is it still on the wall? Don't know. Jesus is my superhero, but of all the hundreds and hundreds of adoption hearings and children's services cases that I've had, I've never had one that I would consider more successful than this adoptive placement, because again, Johnny found a family who offered him unconditional love. Yes. Take your hats off to these people for what they do, because it's not easy. They're not in it to become millionaires. They're in it because they have a commitment to children. And oftentimes, even though they did not speak of it today, they are placed in situations which are very dangerous. People have threatened their lives. And there have been social workers, I remember several in Franklin County that have been killed, have been shot when they go out. So be thankful that we have these people here today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Judge, thank you for bringing a tear to our eyes. But again, the call out to our community, please, if you can, somehow you feel called, led to help our children who need assistance through foster care, kinship care, and even adoption, reach out to Job and Family Services. With that, I want to thank you again for being here today. I'm going to turn over the next several minutes here to Ashley Washburn, who is our CPC representative. And again, remind all of you, come and join us for our upcoming events again next week, Tuesday at the DoubleTree, as we look at obstacles and solutions around housing models. With that, turning it over to Ashley, and I have to run to my next thing today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for coming today. Just some quick updates on how we can help the United Way as funded partners. Something we're doing new this year is at the annual breakfast, which is going to be April 8th in place of our CPC forum. We are having a silent auction there to help raise funds for funded partners. So we're asking if anyone can bring items to the United Way for donation for that silent auction. Anything you think would be a great addition to that auction, you can contact someone at the United Way or stop in with it. The sooner the better. We don't have a deadline for that yet. Obviously, April is the event. So if we can have that coordinated before April, that would be amazing. So in the next couple of months, be mindful of gathering some type of donation for that, please. Our next CPC forum will be, which we keep talking about, the Community Service Expo. So we won't be meeting here next month. We'll be at that expo. And we did make some changes based on suggestions from our funded partners and the community. We are doing it shorter and later this year. So it's not an all-day event. We're finding in the last couple of years, it was a lot of the same funded partners kind of coming through. So we wanted to open it up more to the community. So 4 to 6 at the Mitchell Center at the Y. So hopefully people can come after work to learn about those resources in our community. As funded partners, there is an expectation, a hope that you all are able to have a table there and attend. There is a registration online at the United Way website. So go there to sign up for that, please, and thank you. A couple things that day we're going to have, the breakfast. I'm back to the award breakfast. We need to have a award submission from our funded partners. So we're looking for 2 awards that annual breakfast day. The Hope Award. So the Hope Award is for someone who has been through your program, had a success. The nomination for that is online at the United Way website as well. And then the second is the Ken Johnson Award. So that award is geared around volunteerism. So someone who has volunteered with your program and been successful in that capacity. For both of those awards, there is $1,000 grant given to the organization who nominates. So there is some reward there for your agency if you're able to provide a nomination that is obtain the award. So if you have any questions or concerns about that, though, definitely reach out to staff at the United Way for more information or look online. And then lastly, I just wanted to have you be thinking of the future. I know it seems like September is far away, but it'll be here before we know it. Week of Caring. Start thinking about in the next few months projects that you might have that you could be using at your agency for Week of Caring. Always great to have people come out and see your agencies and be a part of helping you through that process. So and then always try to promote these CPC forums for us. Juan is doing a great job of putting them on Facebook, social media. So if you can take the United Way's post and share it, that's one easy way to kind of promote. If you're not on social media, tell all your friends. We're trying to make CPC a model of, this is a place we can come and network and not have to pay. We have a lot of great networking opportunities in Licking County, but a lot of them are costly. They have memberships, you have to buy the food, this is a free way for us nonprofits to come together and network and learn about different agencies doing work in our community. If, the topic, for example, today isn't something that you normally work with, still come and learn. And so you can refer, other people, it's all about telling someone So it helps you learn about resources and it helps you network. I think networking opportunities are always important for us nonprofits at this level that's very affordable. So tell all your friends, promote as much as you can on social media. I would love to have a full room. I know everyone is getting back from the holidays right now and everybody is sick. So today I know it's a smaller attendance and we have those variables going on, but 26, I really want these CPC forums to be impactful and full of people and doing all the things for us. So does anyone have questions, concerns? I mean, you can always reach out to me. Don't forget, I'm kind of our funded partner voice at the board meeting. So if there is something that you don't want to right now shout out to me in this public forum, you can always email me, find me and say, hey, this is something I would love to discuss with the board. You're the one there, please, speak on behalf of us. So that is my role other than this and all the other things. So just reach out if you have a concern that you would love for me to address. I don't mind at all. But thank you for always coming and showing up. And with that, I think we're done. Thanks again,
Thank
guys.
you.
We'll see everyone next.
Nice to meet you guys. It's nice to meet you there.
Thank you, guys. I think Shelby gave you my card about family health services.
Yes, and
Yeah.
actually, okay.
Do you want me to give you a quick commercial?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're like the nonprofit reproductive health clinic.
Okay.
So we do free breast exams, birth control, STI testing and treatment. So we can kind of be their first
Yeah.
women's health
Okay.
or male
I was
sexual
gonna
health.
ask, so I
Yeah.
think,
We see females and males.
is your Newark office really close to the hospital? I stopped in there not too long ago and picked up a whole box of things, which was great.
Oh, good. I don't even know. That's
Then I
right.
had one of our male tenants, he was like, I need something, so I gave him this, and he goes,
Yeah.
it says all female stuff, I go, but no, I'm pretty sure that
We do
like.
sexual health and STI testing.
Okay.
And